7th graders, you need your Unit 3 note packet out and open up to 3.3b, dividing positive and negative fractions and mixed numbers. And that, my friends, is how to divide fractions. It is not that complicated, I promise you. Also, make sure you have a calculator and a pencil ready to roll. If you need to, pause the video. Our goal for today is, the other day we worked on multiplying. Today, it says I can divide positive and negative rational numbers. Let's go ahead and let's look at that first chunk in our notes. That first chunk in your notes talks about compare. What do you notice? So with your calculator handy, if you need to pause the video to go get your materials, do that now. Let's go through these problems. 4 divided by 2 is what? 2. 4 times a half, or half of 2. You might go, Miss Kluver, that's 2. And if you don't believe me, go 4 times 1/2, 2. What's the same in these two problems? Well, they both have a 4. That comes first. What's different? What else is the same? They both have 2 as the final answer. What's different? Well, this one has division. This one has multiplication. What else is different? This one has a 2. This one is a 1/2. Now think about this. You can write 2 as a fraction. You just put it over 1. So it's almost like this first one is doing a handstand over here. It flipped. Interesting. Let's do the next problem. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 9 times a third, or a third of 9. So if I type that in my calculator, 9 times, remember we can change the order with multiplication and it doesn't change the product, a third, 3. Same answer. When we compare, that's the same. Look at same first number. Division changed to multiplication. And look at this 3. It's like it's doing a handstand again, because I could put 3 as 3/1. It's like the 3 flipped. And now the 1 is on top and the 3 is on bottom. And look, we're getting the same answer. Let's do the next one. 6 divided by a half. How many halves go into 6? It's another way to say that. So if I have 6 divided by 1/2, 12. You might go, Miss Kluver, is that right? Well, think about that. If you have 6 holes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many halves go into that? 1. If I cut each one of these holes in half and then I count the halves, that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that makes sense. 6 divided by 1/2 is 12. There's 12 halves that go into 6. What's 6 times 2? 12. What's the same? They both start with 6. They both have an answer of 12. What's different? The first one is division. The second one's multiplication. And the second number here, it's like it flipped. 1/2. 2/1 is the same as 2. So look at it. It's like the 1/2 flipped. Let's go to the last problem here. 8 divided by 3/4. So in my calculator, I'm going to go 8 divided by 3/4. 32 thirds. So 32 thirds. You may go, Miss Kluver, how many 3/4 go into 8? It's okay for this to be a larger value. And look at this one right here. 8 times 4/3. Let's try that one. 8 times 4/3, 32 thirds. The exact same answers. The exact same first problem, or the first number, excuse me. And look at division changed to multiplication. It's like the second number is flipped. But we're getting the same answer. Now, I don't know if you remember dividing fractions and mixed numbers from last year, but there were 3 words to help us do that. So let's remind ourselves right now. Find this next chunk in your notes. So what we just discovered is there are things that were the same over here. There were things that changed, right? But we were still getting the same answer. So let's put some words to that. When you divide, you get the same answer as if you multiply, right? We changed the division to multiplication, and then look, we took this second value and then we flipped it. Do you remember what that term is for when we take a value and we flip it? It's the unprofessional way to say it. Reciprocal. So when you divide, you get the same answer as if you multiply by the Reciprocal. So a reciprocal is where you take a number and you flip it. So you could even write under here, flipping a number. Okay, that's what reciprocal is. It's where you're flipping a number. So let's look at this. We have 1/2 divided by 3/4. Is that the same as 1/2 times 4/3? Well, let's first get an answer to this. 1/2 divided by 3/4. I get 2/3. So let's look at this one. 1/2 times the reciprocal of 3/4 is you just take it and you flip it. So 4/3 would be the reciprocal, right? So 1/2, we changed to multiplication, we flipped 3/4 to get 4/3. 4/3, 2/3. They're the exact same. So when we're dividing, it's the exact same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we have these 3 words that we can remember when it comes to dividing. Keep, change, flip. Maybe you heard the word switch before, and that is completely fine. They're the exact same thing. Find this next chunk in your notes. Let's practice finding reciprocals. So if we want to find the reciprocal of -2/3, first of all, I see that negative. I'm just going to bring it straight down, okay? So negative, and then a reciprocal is where you take a value and you flip it. So whatever is on the top moves to the bottom, whatever on the bottom moves to the top. So the reciprocal of 2/3 would be 3/2. So the reciprocal of -2/3 would be -3/2. Let's look at this one. Here we have a whole number. Can you find the reciprocal of a whole number? Absolutely. You can make a whole number look like a fraction. You just put it over 1. So if I want to find the reciprocal of 7, I would take this and I would flip it. Be 1/7. How about a mixed number? Now remember, a mixed number is the sum of a whole number and a proper fraction. So first, what do you think we need to do? We need to change to an improper fraction, right? Because we have addition, division in there. Let's suck that whole number up into the fraction. So let's start by doing the Texas. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. So we have 21/4. Now we need to find the reciprocal of this. These are equivalent. My equal sign is appropriate there. What's the reciprocal of 21/4? Just take it and flip it. It would be 4/21. So now let's use this to divide fractions. Find the next chunk in your notes. How do you divide fractions? Here are our steps. Write these down. We know that dividing is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we are going to keep our first fraction. We're going to change division to multiplication, and we're going to flip. We're going to find the reciprocal of that second fraction. Then we have a multiplication problem, so we're going to simplify before we multiply. And then to multiply fractions, we just multiply our numerators and denominators. Go ahead and write those steps down. Pause the video if you need to. Here is example 1. 4/5 divided by 2/3. So I'm going to keep my first fraction. I'm going to change division to multiplication. And I'm going to find the reciprocal. I'm going to flip my second fraction. So 3/2. Now we're going to simplify before we multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. 4 and 5, do they share a factor? No. How about 4 and 2? Yes, I can divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 3 to 1, well, it's a 1, so I'm done. And 3 to 5, they only share 1, so I'm done. Then I multiply my numerators and then denominators. So 2 times 3 is 6. 5 times 1 is 5, and I'm going to leave my final answer as a simplified improper fraction. Unless this was a real world problem, then we would change it to a mixed number. Let's go to example 2. We have negatives that are coming into play. But we got this. Remember over here, these were both positive. The signs agree, so my quotient is positive. Look at over here. We have a negative and a negative. Do my signs agree? Yes, they do. So my answer, my quotient, is going to be positive. Maybe you want to put a little plus there to remind you of that. Then, following our steps, we're going to keep our first fraction. The negatives just come down, so negative 5/9. We're going to change division to multiplication. And here, when we flip, that negative still has to follow down. We're going to find the reciprocal of this fraction. So I'm just going to flip it. It'd be 36 on top, 25 on the bottom. Again, notice those negatives, they just followed them down. Now we're going to simplify before we multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. 5 and 9, they only share a factor of 1. 5 and 25, they share 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 25 divided by 5 is 5. How about 36 and 5? They only share 1. 36 and 9, they share 9. 36 divided by 9 is 4. 9 divided by 9 is 1. So then we get to multiply our numerators and then denominators. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 5 is 5. And I already noted up here that my answer is going to be positive. So 4/5 because my signs agree. Let's look at the other one here. We have a negative 12/7. This is example 3. Divided by 21. I see a negative. This value here is a positive, so do my signs agree? No, that means my quotient is going to be negative. I'm going to put a little negative there just to remind me. I'm going to keep my first fraction. That negative just follows down. I'm going to change division to multiplication. And I'm going to find the reciprocal. I'm going to flip the second value. So here you might go, gosh, that's a whole number. But remember, we found the reciprocal of 7. We just wrote 7 as a fraction at first. And then we flipped it. So let's do the same thing here. Let's write 21 over 1. And now let's flip it. That would be 1 over 21. Now we are ready to go. We have simplify before you multiply. 12 to 7, can I simplify there? Nope. How about 12 and 21? Yeah, I can divide both of those by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 1 to 7, well, there's a 1, so I know I'm already simplified. And 1 to 7, there's a 1, I'm already simplified. So then multiply the numerators and then denominators. So 4 times 1 is 4. 7 times 7 is 49. And we know our answer is going to be negative. Remember, I gave myself that little reminder up there? And it's negative because my signs don't agree, right? This is negative, this is positive. Let's go to the next chunk in our notes. How do we divide mixed numbers? Write these steps down. We're going to first make our mixed numbers improper fractions. We're going to keep, change, flip. Yeah, that's the action. Because this brings us to a multiplication problem. Then we're going to simplify before you multiply. Then we get to multiply our numerators and then denominators. Pause the video if you need to finish writing that down. Here's example 1. We're going to start by changing the mixed numbers into improper fractions. So let's do the Texas. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 is 18/5, divided by 1 and 11/13. Let's do the Texas. 1 times 13 is 13, plus 11 is 24/13. Now, I'm ready to keep, change, and flip. So I'm going to keep my first fraction, which is 18/5. I'm going to change division to multiplication, and I'm going to flip. I'm going to find the reciprocal of 24/13. So 13/24. Now I'm ready to simplify before I multiply. Take every numerator to every denominator. 18 and 5, can you simplify there? 18 and 24, can you simplify there? Yes, they are both even, so they share 2. They share 3. If they share 2 and 3, that means they share 6 as a factor, and that's going to be the greatest factor that they share. 18 divided by 6 is 3. 24 divided by 6 is 4. Then 13 and 4, do they share a factor? Not outside of 1. How about 13 and 5? They only share 1. So now I am ready to multiply my numerators and then denominators. So 3 times 13, well, 3 times 10 is 30, 3 times 9 is 9, so 39. And 5 times 4 is 20. There's my final answer. Let's look at example 2. Now, this one is a minus, this one has nothing in front of it. The positive is the default, so do my signs agree? No, they do not. That means my final answer is going to be negative. I'm going to put a negative over there just to help remind myself. Then, before I keep change flip, I'm going to change my mixed numbers into improper fractions. Remember, this minus is just going to come down. So 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So I have a negative 4 thirds. 8 divided by that negative 4 thirds. Now I am ready to keep my first value, change division to multiplication, and find the reciprocal of negative 4 thirds. So I'm just going to take this and flip it. And remember that minus is still going to follow down. So it's going to be a negative 3/4. How do we write a whole number as a fraction? We just put it over 1. And I could have done that up here, absolutely. And it would have followed me down. Now I'm ready to simplify before I multiply. Since I have a 1 here, I know I can't simplify 8 and 1. How about 8 and 4? Yes, I can divide both by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 3 and 1, I have a 1 here. 3 and 1, I have a 1 here, so I know I'm done. I just get to multiply my numerators. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. I had my minus up there. I know my signs don't agree, so it's a negative 6 over 1. Now, what can I simplify this to be? Negative 6. Let's look at our last one for today. We have negative 1 and 1/6 divided by negative 2 and 1/8. This is our third example. I'm going to start by looking at my minuses. I have 2 of them. Do my signs agree? They do. That means my quotient is going to be positive. I'm going to put a little reminder there. I'm going to change right away my mixed numbers into improper fractions and rewrite my division problem. So I'm going to do the Texas. These negatives are just going to follow me down. 1 times 6 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So a negative 7/6 divided by, the negative is just going to follow me down. Do the Texas. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17/8. Now I made them improper. I'm going to keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction, negative 7/6. Change division to multiplication and find the reciprocal of my second fraction. That negative just follows me down, remember. Okay, so it would be 8/17. Now I'm going to simplify before I multiply, looking right here. 7 and 6, they only share 1 as a factor. 7 and 17, they only share 1. 8 and 17, they only share 1. 8 and 6, they're both even, so 2 goes into them. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now I'm ready to multiply my numerators and then denominators. So 7 times 4 is 28. 3 times 17, that'd be 30, and then 21, so that'd be 51. Now I know my signs agree. I had my little plus here to help remind me, so I'm just going to circle that as my final answer. 7th graders, your assignment title for this lesson is 3.3b, and it is located in the Unit 3 folder in Schoology. Remember the 5 steps for dividing fractions. Make improper, keep, change, flip, simplify before you multiply, multiply your numerators, multiply your denominators.